Deta jara nisenowa sayano yawatasa vidamido Eta zate aditeya Brahma meda viharamida mahu Tetenja nubagama Silawadasanena sampano Kamesu vineya gedam Naija dogavaseya punariti One more. Teta jarani senowa Noyawatasa vidamida Eta zate aditeya Brahmameda viharamida mahu Tetenja nubagama Silawadasanena sampano Vineya gedam Naija dogavaseya punariti. Translation, follow me. Whether standing, walking, sitting or lying down, as long as one is awake, one should develop this mindfulness in loving kindness. There is a noble living honor here in the dispensation of the Buddha, not having wrong view, being virtuous and endowed with vision, the first stage of enlightenment, and discarding attachment to sensual objects, one definitely does not come again to lie in a mother's womb. Regain. Whether standing, walking, sitting, or lying down, one is awake. It is a noble living honor here in the dispensation of the Buddha. Not having wrong view, being virtuous and endowed with vision, the first stage of enlightenment, the essential object, one definitely does not come again to a line in the mother's womb. We recite Pali from the beginning, page 101. Recite together Pali. Yasa nuvavato yeka nevada sindi visanam yami jeva nuyong janto ratindiva matantito sukha suvati sautoja eva mati gunu bedam paritandam panamahe karaniya mata kusalena yanda sandam bada bisameja seka ujuja suhujuja suvajoja samudu anatimani Santo Sagoja Suvaroja Abhagejoja Sanlahuga Vodi Santendriyoja Nibegoja Abhagavagule Sananugedo Kodama Jarigenji Vinyubare Ubhawadeyo Sugina Wagemina Hondu Savasata bhavantu sukhitata Kejivana buddhati Tasawata varavana Tigavayewa mahanda Majimarasaka nugatula Yewa data Yewa dure wasandiya vidure Buddha wasambhawe siva Savasata bhavantu sukhitata Labaraparanigo Veda Nadiminye Dagataji Nagaji Tanavadiga Sinya Ninya Minya Sadoga Mejeya Madaya Daniya Bodha Mayusa Eka Bodha Manurake Evam Bisava Buddhesu Vanasambhavaye Aparimana Lokasami Vanasambhavaye Aparimana Oda Doja Diriyinja Asambhada Viramasapadam Teta Jarani Sainowa Tasa Vidameda It Brahmameda Viharamida Mahu Teta Nubagama Silawadasanena Sambano Kamesu Vinayagidam Nahija Dogavaseya Punaredi. To develop Metta Bhavana, we need to remove anger by reflecting the 10 verses. If anger cannot be extinguished, we should reflect upon Kamma, the resultant effect of all good and bad action done by us as our own properties. What is Kamma? Kamma is something that is done or a deed It also means a mental state that is instrumental in doing the deed, good or bad, wholesome or unwholesome. Karma means the mental state which arises in our mind when we do some deed. Whenever there is a deed, good or bad, there arises in our mind this mental state. And this mental state organizes the other associated mental states and also engage itself to the object. That mental state is called Cetana in Pali, and it is translated as volition. So what we call karma is not actually the deed, good or bad, but that mental state that accompanies in our mind who does the good deeds or bad deeds, wholesome or unwholesome. And as a mental state,
Recording in progress.
it arises and disappears immediately because according to the teaching of the Buddha, whether it is a mental state or a material state, it arises and immediately it disappears. But unlike other mental states, when it disappears, it leaves some potential to give results in the mental continuum of beings. Although we cannot say or we cannot know whether this potential is stored, but when conditions are favorable for the karma to give results, the results are produced. The law of karma came from the Buddha's own intuitive knowledge. Understanding the law of karma taught us self-reliance or responsibility. We are not to blame anybody else for our suffering or failure in this life. We are the ones who cause the results to be produced. We can shape our future lives, and we do not have to rely any other person for our good future, because we alone can create our future, good or bad. Regarding karma, we have to reflect in this way. Oh yogi, you are practicing, you are developing the practice of Metta Bhavana while being angry. What is your intention to do against the other? It is true that whatever action you have done based upon anger will in consequence bring evil effect to your danger. Yes, indeed, your karma, the resultant effect of good or bad action you have done, is nothing but the cause of your own doing. Karma is the only one which you really own or possess. You are sure to inherit this karma, which constitute all kinds of willful action, whether mental, verbal, physical, thoughts, words or deeds, either good or bad, done by you on your own volition. Karma is your own relatives. Karma is your own refuge. The karmic effect which occurs or which take place depending upon anger will not contribute to your achieving Megaphala. Neither will it do good to you to be reborn in the humans and Deva realms. It will not render help, but will only cause you to suffer misery in hell. If you commit the evil karma of anger, it will be like a person who first suffers and burns and gets awfully dirty by holding and carrying in his hands the burning hot coal or discussing excrement with which he is going to cause injury and misery to the other. Just imagine a person whom you recognize as an enemy. What harm could possibly be done by him with this anger? With this anger that is generated in him, be to his own disadvantage. He too has his own karma, moral or immoral volition as his real estate. He is the inheritor of his own karma done by himself on his own volition. The enemy who has done evil karma by being angry will suffer its harmful effect just as a person on whom the dust will fall back by the force of wind. If he throws the dust to shower upon another man, standing against the wind on the leeward side from an advanced position. So Buddha said, if a certain fool commits wrong against a noble person of purifying conduct, this wrongdoing will react upon him as a retribution, etc. So that is Buddha admonishment. See, look at your paper, page number 1, number 2. Page 1, number 2. Can you follow me? If a certain fool commits wrong against a noble person of purifying conduct, this wrongdoing will react upon him as a retribution, etc. If a certain fool commits wrong against a noble person of purifying conduct, this wrongdoing will react upon him as a retribution, etc. Read together. If a certain fool commits wrong against a noble person, this wrongdoing will react upon him as a retribution, etc. So that is, you have to pay back your bad karma. You are responsible for the bad karma if you do bad things. Another method is to reflect on the attributes of the Bodhisattva. By reflecting on the attributes of the Bodhisattva, we can suppress our anger. If anger is not yet subdued by reflection in this way, It should be suppressed by reflecting on the noble attributes of the Buddha in its various states of existence previous to attaining Buddhahood. We have to reflect in this way. O yogis, you are the Buddha disciple. Your teacher Buddha, in his capacity as a bodhisattva, that is in his existence prior to attainment of his enlightenment, for a period of 4 asanchaya, 4 incalculable and 100,000 world cycles. Why relentlessly exercising the virtues required of the bodhisattva to accomplish his parami perfection, he had practiced khanti, forbearance or patience, without polluting the mind with anger, even against all sorts of murderers who were his enemies. So the way of practicing patience is illustrated in Visuddhimagga. But now we will cite an example commencing from Kandiwadi Jataka, very famous story. So at one time, during the reigns of King Kalabu, in the city of Vinares, our Bodhisattva born of a high caste Brahmin. He was a multi-millionaire possessing 80 crores of rupees. Once his parents died, they left behind all their wealth and properties. It has occurred to him that my parents were unable to take along with them what they physically own on their death, though they were able to accumulate immense wealth. So when we die, all our property we have to leave. We have to leave all our properties. So how to take these property to the next life? That is charity. So on his part, he considered, I will take my properties with me on my death. So Bodhisattva generously gave away all his possession in charity to those who deserved. Thereafter, Bodhisattva went into the retreat in one of the forested area of the Himalaya. He assumed the role of a hermit. So his name was Kandi Hermit. That hermit lived only on fruits which were available in the forest. However, there was no salt for consumption. In order to have proper and adequate nourishment, that hermit made his way to village where there were people to get salt and sour fruits for his own personal consumption. Eventually, that hermit Kanti reached the city of Varanasi, Benares. When going round for alms in the city, the commander-in-chief of the army, finding him worthy of reverence, so the commander respectfully invited hermit to his residence to accept the offer of meat. Later, the hermit was requested to reside in the presence of the king's royal garden. This request was accepted by him, but the hermit continued to stay in the royal garden in his place of retreat. While he was so residing on one day, King Klabu of Binaras visited the royal garden in the company of his queen and maids, together with a large retinue, to hold a ceremonious function. The ceremony was held comprising a series of performances of music on a magnificent and spacious marble slab within the precincts of the royal garden. The King Klabu enjoyed the festivity, watching the display of music, song and dances. After taking a lying posture with his head resting on the thigh of a young girl whom he adored. Merry-making, including the dance with accompanying music, formed parts of the celebration taken part by professional dancers and maids from the royal place. While listening to the soft music, the sweet melody had lulled the king to sleep. Finding the king in deep sleep, a troop of female singers and dancers stopped playing music for a moment, and they roamed about the garden for sightseeing. So when they looked around the garden, they came across the great hermit, our Bodhisattva. So the dancer and singer approached the hermit Kandi, wishing to listen to the preaching which he might be inclined to give. At their request, the great hermit Kandi delivered a sermon appropriate to the occasion. At that time, the maid on whose thigh the king had pillowed his right head maneuvered her limbs to wake up the king. The king then aroused from his sleep, found none of his retinue near him, so he woke up and he asked where they had gone. And the maid replied, the whole crowd had gone to the great hermit Kandi. And on hearing the words, the king became furious with jealousy. Then he picked up his sword and hurried his way to the hermit. He uttered with uncontrollable anger, I will give that hermit a good lesson. So the king was very furious. So seeing the king raging with anger, one of the maids close to him caught hold of his sword and tried to calm him down. However, King Labu's anger remained uncontrollable, and he asked the hermit, what was the doctrine you accept? What was the doctrine you practiced? The hermit Kandi replied, the discipline, the principle I accept or I practice is doctrine of Khanti, patient. What is Khanti? The king asks. Khanti means tolerance, exercised by one without feeling angry against those who provoke. If some scold or abuse without reason, and he have to restrain and he have to accept all condition. So Khanti is the exercise by one without feeling angry against those who provoke. Khanti Hamid replied, and the king told the hermit, so that is the meaning of Khanti. I will test you. I will put you to a crucial test to find out if you are really accomplished with patience. So the king ordered his servant, the executioner, you bet you better pull down this thief. The hermit lay him prostrate on the ground and punish him with 2,000 lashes by whipping with a twisted cane fixed with sharp-pointed pins on all four sides of his body. The king ordered the executioner. The executioner gave the hermit 2,000 lashes as ordered by the king Klabu. Ordinarily, a person would surely succumb to the injuries received if he has to undergo a penalty of 2,000 lashes. Curiously, the great hermit Khanti was found still alive, possibly because of his noble qualities of Khanti or relaxed or slack force put in at the time of whipping. We cannot say. However, the thick outer and inner thin layer of skin covering the flesh of the entire body of the hermit Khanti was grievously torn. Flesh was also torn to bits. Blood flows out profusely. Just imagine how severe the pain and suffering would be that the hermit Khanti had to undergo. In spite of this ferocious ill treatment, the great noble hermit Khanti harbored no anger, ill will or grudge, either against the king or the executioner. This is the cruel punishment imposed without reason or fault whatsoever. Ordinarily, such a treatment would induce anger and malicious feeling. So these kinds of patients indeed call for the spirit of emulation from all the yogis who are developing Metta Bhavana. Finding the great hermit stay alive, the king Glabu asked him, what doctrine you are practicing? The king asked. And the great hermit Khanti replied, I firmly hold the doctrine of Khanti, patience. Do you think that this patience can be traced in my skin of my body? Patience is not underneath the layers of the skin. Patience resides in my hearts of the hearts and never runs out. On hearing this, the king became angry And infuriated by this mental attitude, King Klabu ordered that 2 hands of hermit be cut off, and also the 2 feet, the ears, and the nose be sliced off. The executioner, strictly complying with the king's orders, and cruelly cut off those bodily limbs with an axe. Every time a limb was severed, a question was put as to what was the kinds of doctrine accepted by you. The reply given by the great hermit repeatedly to this question was the same. I had held firmly to the doctrine of Kanti, which found its abode in my heart. Eventually the king fed up, so after uttering in discourses, "You cunning hermit, better live with your Kanti." So the king, Klabu, fondly kicked the hermit in the breast with his foot and then departed. After his departure, when the king reached the gate of the royal garden, the king was swallowed down by the earth. And commentary mentioned that the wicked king Klabu was dragged down to Awiji hell, enveloped in burning flames. After this, the commander-in-chief of the army came over the great hermit Kanti and tendered his apology, not to feel angry and bear malice against the country. Thereupon the Reverend Hermit Kanti gave his reply. Yomehateja Padeja Kanana Sinja Sediyi Chiran Jivatu Raja Nahi Kojanti Madisa. That means, O Commander-in-Chief, King Klabu, who has caused my hands and feet, the ears and the nose to be cut off, this King Klabu may live long, for being able to develop metta without getting angry. Noble virtuous person like me are not used to get angry. Noble people are able to develop loving kindness with best wishes and goodwill, and not being accustomed to get angry. So Kanti Hamid replied in this way. So yogis who are developing Metta Bhavana through meditation in accordance with the teaching of the Buddha, your enemy who has done wrong to you will not be as bad as King Klabu. It is proper for you to be patient without getting angry, just as the great Kantiwadi Hamid was able to endure with patience and with no anger the affliction of the heinous crime committed by King Klabu. And this is first story. Another story of Dhammapala. At one time, Mahapatapa was the ruling monarch in the country of Benares. At that time, our Bodhisattva entered the womb of the chief queen of Chanda Devi, who later gave birth to a son. Bodhisattva, the newly born baby, was given the name Dhammapala. When this young prince Dhammapala was 7 months old, his mother, Chanda Devi, the queen, after bathing her child and dressing him with fine costume, was caressing and jovially playing with the infant with love. At the moment, the queen, whose joyous thoughts were momentarily on her son, being so delighted that she failed to get up and pay respect to her husband, the king, who had by then come over to the place where the mother was fondling the child. The king, on seeing the mother fondling her son, imagined, even now, this woman is becoming swell-headed and conceited. She relied on her son. When the child becomes a grown-up, it is almost certain that she will surely neglect me. Perhaps it would be better to get rid of this son now, the king decided. So with a feeling of disappointment which had reflected on his facial expression, the king left the palace and proceeded to the royal chamber where the throne had stood. The king immediately sent for the executioner and gave order that the infant child be brought before his presence. Judging from his looks from the very outset, the Queen Chanda Devi knew that her husband the king had entertained his resentment against her. So realizing this unhappy state of affairs, the queen was shedding tears while folding the baby to her breast. While the queen was weeping, the executioner appeared and snatched away the child Dhammapala from her. She followed him from behind the executioner. On their arrival before the king, the child was put on a wooden slab, and the king immediately ordered, "Chop off the hands of the poor little unfortunate child." The Queen Chanda Devi entreated the king, "The child is innocent, that only I had the fault." So the queen, the mother, pleaded repeatedly that her hands be cut off instead of the hands of the innocent son, but no avail. The executioner had to obey and execute the orders of the king. The hands of the 7-month-old infant Dhammapala were therefore cruelly chopped off with an axe. The two small tender hands were dismembered as if a delicate sprout of a bamboo plant is severed. The young infant Bodhisattva, however, did not cry, but remained steady with patience. So the commentaries say, "Tho hatesu seja manesu Nivarodi Napari Devi Kantinja Mitinja Puri Charikan Gatwa Adiwasisi. That means the young child Dhammapala, when cut off his hands, while his hands were chopped off, neither uttered a cry or lamented, exercising the practice of patience, wishing happiness to the other, guided by the thoughts of loving kindness, endure the pain and suffering by resigning himself to the situation. Now the mother queen Chanda Devi, after picking up the soft tiny hands that had been severed, folded them close to her breast, and she was bitterly crying. Thereafter, the father Mahad Patapa king again ordered the executioner to cut off the 2 feet and then the head of the child. The queen went on entreating her husband to pardon the innocent child, but to no purpose. The executioner then severed the child head as ordered by the king, and even tossed up the little delicate body of the child in the air, and on falling down, caught it up with the sharp-pointed sword and played with it as if it were a wreath of flowers. It is almost unbelievable that there was just kinds of foolish, wicked, and heartless father without a tinge of mercy to him. However, there is every possibility of finding such a merciless man from among the worldling when one becomes a slave to anger. Because of this possibility, the case of this wicked king Mahapatapa, the father of Dhammapala Bodhisattva, has been cited as an example. Finally, the queen, the mother, died of a broken heart on the spot while weeping and wailing. By a curious coincidence, the king Mahapatapa also fell down from his throne and dropped on the floor and eventually reached the level of the earth below, where he was swallowed down to death. So it is mentioned that the king had gone down to Aviji hell, one of the 8 Nirayas. As for the young child Dhammapala, it was stated that he passed away peacefully while practicing patience without any anger, which had not arisen till the time of his death. So we need to consider this story. It might be possible for the yogis who is developing Metta to endure pain and suffering without being angry, just as the young child Dhammapala have practiced forbearance. And there are many stories, and Bodhisattva have also as an elephant, as a monkey, as a dragon, Bodhisattva practice forbearance and khanti. So we deliver the next other time. We have to stop our discourse for today. By practicing Metta Bhavana, by developing Vipassana meditation, by noting rising, falling, sitting, touching, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, continuously and meticulously, may all yogis be liberated from all suffering. May all meditators realize the real peace in the very near future.